This is Dave with cheapbooks.com. I'm going to be talking about the World of Tank missions. I gotta find out what version this is. I'm really not sure what version of World of Tanks it is. I think it's 9.6 or something like that. So we've got these missions. We're going to look at the campaign. I keep calling them missions, but I'm really talking about the campaign. I guess what happens is if you complete the campaign, you can win a tank. So let's look at the tanks. We've got the Stug 4, which looks like it has some extra armor. The Stug 3 was the most quantity produced tank in World War II, as far as I know. And it's a great performing tank. I loved playing it. We've got the T-28 heavy tank concept. We have the T-55A. Let's see if there's anything else interesting here. And then we have the Object 260, which looks a lot like a Russian tank. So I'm guessing that you have to do them in order because some are locked, and the tier goes higher and higher as you move to the right. So I'm on the Stug 4, and there are light tank missions, medium tank missions, heavy tank missions, tank destroyer missions, and SPG missions. So I'm going to go through all these missions, and my assumption is that if you complete all of the missions, then you can claim the tank. There's an option somewhere where it says claim tank, claim reward. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to show you how I completed each of these missions. I started with the light tanks, win the battle. So I played the light tank until I won the battle. If you survive the battle, then you get an extra 25,000 silver. If your team wins, you get 50,000. If you survive, you get 25,000 more. You have to do a tier 4 light tank or higher. Reconnaissance, spot 2 enemy vehicles. It's very easy to do. You just get a light tank. You got spotting, you have to be the first to spot. So there's 15 enemy tanks and there's going to be a couple light tanks. It's going to be a mad rush. You only have to spot 2, so it's not that many. But just run out there, go to the enemy territory until you encounter 2 enemy tanks that you're pretty sure that you spotted, because remember, your allies might be spotting them too, even if they're behind you. An ally who's behind you can spot a tank in front of you before you do, because of the view range. So just run out there and spot a bunch of vehicles and you should complete that. If you survive the battle, you get an additional 25,000 silver. So you can get 75,000 silver in total for completing that mission. Great way to make money. LT3 is the pursuit, which I completed with honors, meaning that I did the secondary mission. Cause damage to 3 enemy vehicles by shooting them while you are moving or by ramming them. So basically, you have to pay attention. Easy with a light tank. You just keep on moving and keep on shooting at vehicles without stopping. Ram vehicles, shoot at them. Destroy an enemy vehicle by shooting it while you're on the move or ramming it. Apparently I completed that on my first try. It's a little bit harder to do in some of the maps, such as a town map, because you might want to sit and hide somewhere. And it's a little bit harder to do with a heavy tank or a medium tank because you might be focused on reloading. While you're sitting there reloading, you park your tank and you're not moving. So when I got into some of the other tanks, the heavy and the medium, you have to do the same mission. I had to get into the mode of keep on moving. With the light tank, it's easy. You're going to be in a lot of wide open maps. Hit the R button twice to keep the throttle on automatic and just steer it. Lock on to some tanks, fire at them, damage 3 different tanks. What I would do, as soon as you damage one tank, just move on to the next tank. and then keep on doing that until you complete the mission. My advice is that you take seriously completing these missions because there's a lot of them. You have to do perhaps 50 to get to win the tank, and not only do you have to do 50, but some of them you have to do as a platoon, which means you have to have a friend cooperate with you, and the last missions are tough. I read one where you got to do like 4,000 damage, and that's going to be difficult. The last mission is always going to be difficult. Okay, forced halt. Destroy a track of an enemy vehicle. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to fire your gun and you're going to aim for the track. And usually it works if you aim from the front. And it says destroy, damage, destroy, it's the same thing. Hitting it from the side, you might not have as much luck, I don't know. But hitting from the front, easy to knock that thing off. And the vehicle will probably have to be standing still when you hit that track. So if you go into town, vehicles are often stopped while they're in town. So you should have an easier time hitting the track of a vehicle if you go into a place where there's a town or a lot of buildings or rocks that they have to hide behind. If you're out in the open and they're driving really fast, it's going to be really hard to hit their tracks. And if your allies damage that vehicle that you immobilized, then you get an extra 25,000. Now, you don't get the 50,000 silver and 25,000 silver for every mission. So take advantage of it and appreciate it. Some of the missions you're only going to get repair kits and things like that you might not want, but they'll have an equivalent value of around 50,000. Forward observer. Spot an enemy vehicle and assist your allies in destroying it. What this means is that you have to spot a vehicle, and I think your allies have to damage it while you're spotting it, but I'm not sure. What I would recommend, if you don't know what to do, go and spot as many vehicles as you can. Unfortunately, especially if you have artillery, unfortunately, it's possible to spot the entire enemy team, and then after a certain amount of time, they become unspotted, and then they have to be spotted again. So, you should be able to complete this mission, but I'm not sure the way the game mechanics works 100%. I'm an excellent spotter, so I had no problem. The technique that I use is I went and found a bush, I hid in the bush, I made sure my tank was completely hid in the bush, I spotted some enemy vehicles, and I just remained silent until my allies started attacking and destroying it. And obviously you can destroy it too, but you got to make sure your allies get some shots in. Your reward is a large first aid kit, large repair kit, automatic fire extinguisher. It's probably valued at around 50,000. If you go to purchase it, I'm going to show you an example. If we go to this tank and we hit service, you can see that the large repair kit is 20,000. The automatic fire extinguisher is 20,000. So it's equivalent to that 50,000, except for the fact if you don't want something, like I don't use the large first aid kit, you have to sell it probably for half the price or something like that. I wonder what this improved result is. I've never heard of that. It's possible that you can do a second chance and you can try again to get that 35,000. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Okay, spot 2 enemy vehicles before any enemy vehicle spots you. In order to do that, you're probably going to have one of two things. Number one, you're either going to have to hide in a bush, or you're going to have a really good view range that's longer than the enemy. And in order to do that, you're going to need the following things. I'm going to find a tank that has it. Here's a tank, my ELC AMX. It has coated optics, which you should see popped up on your screen, and it has binocular telescope. Over here on the right, I'm going to see if I can drag. Oh, I guess I can't. Okay. You'll see above missions and specials on this window, it says 360 view range in meters. You take the 360, you add the 10% for the coated optics, which is going to bring it up to 396. You add the 25%, which is going to bring it probably up to 480. And you can see quite a distance. You can see up to 500. But the other thing you want to do is you want to have crew, such as my crew, which has, well, this is camouflage, but let's look at his personal file, and you're going to see under skills there is going to be a skill called Recon, increases maximum view range. So you want the Recon skill on your commander. With this skill you can see further, which is going to be good when spotting. If you have a person who is a radio operator, I don't know if I'm going to find a radio, okay, here's one. Let's look at this radio operator, look at his skills. Extends view range. Cumulative with the effects of Recon, coated optics, and binocular telescope. So if you want to be a spotter, you should have a radio operator with situational awareness skill. Now, is there another way? Of course there is. Let's go through our tanks. It's going to be a little bit difficult to pull this off. So, because I don't know if you can see the cursor, the mouse cursor. This tank, the T-32, if you look where the gun is pointed, I'm going to right there, you'll see it says 380 view range. The TOG-2, 360. IS-3, 350. 390, the T-20 has a longer view range. T-69, 400 view range with this T-69 tank. I'm going to show you the tank. There it is. Super Pershing has a 390 view range. T-34 is 360. 380 for the tank destroyer. 380 for the Centurion. 310 for the FV-304. 370 for the Panther. 380 for the Indian Panzer. 370 for the Tiger. 400 for the Low. The Low has a longer view range than all of my other tanks. However, it's also a very slow tank. E-25 is 360, 390 for the Jag Tiger, 360 for the ELC, 390 for the AMX, 360 for that AMX. The FCM has 400. So the FCM 50T has a 400 view range, and it's a fast tank, not a light tank. 350 for the Matilda, 370 for the T-44, 330 for the KV-2, because it's artillery. It was an artillery, they changed it. 350 for the IS-6, 380 for the STI, 360 for the T-34, 350 for the IS-2, and 340 for the Type 1 Chi-Hay. So the best two were the FCM 50T and the Low. They have the best view ranges, which means you're going to be able to spot the enemy before they can spot you. You will see them and they will not see you. Very important for spotting. So, as I was saying, there's two ways to spot the enemy. One is to hide in a bush. Use the cover of the bush so that it allows you to see them, but they can't see you. The second way is to be out of their view range, to have a longer range than they do, so that you can hide even in plain sight and they can't see you because you're too far away. And you can do that based on the tank, based on your crew skills, based on whether you have the binocs and the coated optics, and the camouflage. The camouflage reduces their view range, and you can reduce their view range by having camouflage. As you can see, my my crew member here has 100% camouflage. So that reduces their view range. Having the camo net, I use the camo net on every single tank. That's the camouflage net right there. And hiding in a bush is another way of doing it. There's probably other ways that I've forgotten. So let's move on to the next. SPG Hunter. Spot an enemy SPG and immobilize it, or enable your allies to cause damage to it. It doesn't say if immobilize means to damage or to destroy. So my advice, you should be able to do this anyway, and if you haven't, you should start doing it. Get your light tanks out and go and find SPGs and try and kill them. Especially if there's 3, I've even seen 4 yesterday. Apparently when the game first came out, everybody used to play SPGs, so you would, because they did a lot of damage, so you'd play a game and there'd be like 10 SPGs. So you should have no problem immobilizing SPGs in order to complete the mission. Win the battle by capturing the enemy base. I only survive 15% of my games because I'm a frontline player. I go up and I get really close to the enemy and I take a lot of damage. If they're hiding behind a rock, I get on the other side of the rock. I get as close to them as possible so that they're afraid to move, and it allows my allies to take shots on them while I'm taking shots on them. And plus you get the spotting points, you get the spotting damage. I spot a lot more tanks than most people. I get a lot of experience from spotting damage. The reason why my experience is high is because I'm a frontline player, which means I almost never cap the enemy. So I had to play a game, and it was actually, I think I did it on the first try, I don't remember, but we played the game, and I think as we were about to win, I just told everybody, please cap the enemy, and we were near the cap, and we got on the cap, and we won by capping. And there were a couple of us, while they were finishing off, the last 2 guys, who were also, the enemy was right next to the cap, but there was a giant mountain in the way, so we couldn't all slaughter them. Okay, but that's going to be a difficult one to do. Maybe you play a lot of games where you cap the enemy, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to have a light tank. You're going to have to look for an opportunity to be on the enemy cap. Probably when there's fewer enemy tanks in the game. If you see that you outnumber the enemy, like you're playing a game and you've got, your team has 10 kills and they have 5 and you're way ahead, that's a sign to head for the cap, and it should be easy to cap the enemy. Okay, the next one. Enable your allies to cause damage to 2 enemy vehicles by spotting them or destroying their tracks. I did it by spotting them. I went and I hid in a bush somewhere and I spotted a bunch of tanks, and my allies caused damage to 2 of them. It was pretty easy. And I always have coated optics or binocular telescopes, so I completed with honors, and I got the extra 35,000 bonus. Spot. Okay, the next one is light tank number 10, the Ghost. Spot enemy vehicles and enable your allies to cause at least 1,000 hit points of damage to vehicles spotted by you. Remain unspotted at the moment when the damage is caused. That means that you have to hide in a bush, spot the enemy. You have to remain in the bush. You can't fire, because if you fire, you will expose yourself. So you have to, or you could go and spot, and then you could just leave and hope they don't see you leaving. So hide in a bush, spot a bunch of tanks, allow your allies to do 1,000 damage. Probably they're going to be far away. Hope that your SPGs and artillery does 1,000 damage. There's a button on your keyboard, the T button. You're going to spot some tanks. Look for the weakest tank. The weakest tank is a tank that an SPG can hit that isn't moving, because an SPG is going to do a lot of damage to a tank that is parked there. And then you hit the T button, and it will put a target symbol on top of that tank, and the SPG will get a notification that there's a tank for targeting. So if you find a tank, if someone thinks that they're hiding, then they're not going to move. So you want to find a tank that thinks he's hiding from you, and you put that T on him. He's not going to move. He's just going to sit there like an idiot, and then your SPG is going to rain down hell on him. So that's the way you complete that mission. When I did it, it took me like 3 tries. I think the first time I was short by like 100 hit points or like 20 hit points. It was really close. And if I were in the game for an extra 10 seconds, I would have made it. And the second time it was the same thing. I was within 100. I remember one of the games I was definitely like 20 hit points away from doing it. And then on the third try I was able to complete it. But this is something that I do all the time. When I play the ELC or any of these little tiny tanks, I go and I hide in a bush and I spot, get all the points. I've spotted the whole entire enemy team before. I've spotted 13 tanks in a game. There was one game where I was going down the river and I spotted like 15 tanks crossing the river and they all killed me. Okay, let's see what's next. Laying artillery fire. Join a battle as part of a platoon with 1 or 2 SPGs. You're going to have to be a light tank platooned with an SPG. And what you're going to do is you're going to go spot a tank, and your buddy in the platoon has to help you. And he is going to target those tanks and do 1,500 hit points of damage. The higher tier you have, the more damage they're going to cause and the more hit points the tanks have. So 1,500 hit points is a tier 8 tank. Tier 10 is 3,000 hit points. So if you can destroy a tier 8 tank, if your SPG can destroy a tier 8 tank, that's where you're going to get those games. And if you're a light tank and you're playing like tiers 5 or 6, you're going to get tier 8 tanks. And you're going to want an SPG that's the highest tier possible. And keep in mind, if your SPG and your light tank should be different tiers. If you're a tier 4 light tank, you should play maybe with a tier 7 SPG. Light tanks, for this, you could play tier 1. All that matters is that you're fast and small and can hide. Check your view range. Make sure you got a view range. Make sure you got the coated optics, the binocs, whatever you can get. Go out and spot and get a high tier SPG to do the damage. There should be an SPG platoon all the way down here. It's called like artillery battery, but it doesn't say anything about light tanks. So let's go back up to the next. I'm waiting to get a platoon. Someone is from my clan has offered to platoon with me, so we're going to work on that. Fire at least 6 shots that cause damage to enemy vehicles. Okay, I think that's fairly easy. You have to fire 6 shots. I would get a tank that fires as quickly as possible. It has to be tier 4 or higher. Oh no, wait, that's medium tank. We've got to go to light tank. Join as a platoon of light tanks. Find a light tank friend. Spot enemy vehicles to cause 2,000 hit points of damage spotted by you. Okay. Now, this is kind of stupid because you're joining a platoon, but you have to do the spotting. It says nothing about your platoon doing the spotting. It's not clear. It says you. It doesn't say your platoon. So we don't know if it's total for the platoon or total just for you. So what that means is that your platoon member could spot those tanks and take credit for you. So what you want to do is get your light tank platoon. You go first, spot the enemy, and have your buddy stay behind you and do the damage. And have your buddy cause 2,000 damage at tanks that you've spotted. So you're just going to do the spotting, coated optics, binocs, camouflage, recon, the radio operator guy, and your buddy is going to have premium rounds. He's going to have a light tank with a very powerful gun, and he's going to go do as much damage as possible, and the rest of your team is going to do the same. Let's move on to the next one. Destroy an enemy vehicle that is the same tier as your vehicle or higher. Just so you know, with this platoon, it could be that you both spot a combined 2,000. It's not clear. I don't know. So that's your other option. Okay. Light tank number 13, fair fight. Destroy an enemy vehicle that is the same tier as your vehicle or higher. I think you should have no problem doing that. 75,000 silver is pretty good. Cause at least 1,000 hit points of damage. If you are tier 8, you're going to cause 1,000 hit points. Well, destroying the enemy vehicle could mean you just get that last shot in. If you really want to win this and you want to cheat and be really mean, you can sit there and wait until someone has low hit points and then get that final shot in and kill the enemy vehicle. The next one is the maximum result. Finish the battle as a top player in your team by experience earned. 75,000 silver. I do that frequently. If you want the most experience, you have to have penetrations. And if you want penetrations, you have to have a gun that does a lot of penetrations. And not only that, but you will have to have the ammunition that does a lot of penetrations. My understanding is that the HE rounds, the high explosive rounds, are more likely to penetrate than any other type of round. So what I would do is get a tank, load it up with as many HE rounds as possible. If you penetrate higher tier tanks, you get more experience. So I would get HE rounds. I would go into a tank that would have an auto loader, so you can shoot 4 to 6 rounds because it goes by penetrations, not damage. If you've got a tank that can shoot 6 rounds at once, you've got an advantage. You get an autoloader tank shooting, or any tank that shoots rapidly, you put in HE rounds, you go find some tanks, and you just hit them again and again and again and again and again. And if you're only going to cause a little bit of damage, and they might not care. If they're getting hit, and it's difficult for them to know how much damage they're taking. But find some top-tier tanks. You're going to be able to penetrate a lot of the top-tier tanks with the HE rounds. And just keep nailing the tanks as many times as you can. Hide and reload, and then go back and repeat with the aim of just getting penetrations through the HE rounds. You're not going to damage the tanks. If they chase after you, you have to run. Or you got to switch your rounds to the regular rounds, which is a technique you have to learn anyway. Okay. So that will get you a lot of experience. The other thing you could do is go out with I would recommend you do it with a premium tank, because you usually get better placement in the matchmaker with premium tanks. I don't know which premium tanks get the best placement, but I do know that when I go out with my T-34 Tier 8 Premium, I often go up against Tier 9 and Tier 10 tanks. Maybe with the IS-6 also, I don't remember. But if you read about it, you'll find that some of the tanks will always put you up at the top and always make everyone else weaker than you. That doesn't give you more experience when you destroy weaker tanks, but it'll make it easier for you to win conventionally by destroying the enemy. So I think it's achievable with the HE rounds. That's the way I plan on doing it. HE rounds, rapid fire gun, or autoloader. Reconnaissance Pro. Assist your allies in causing at least... the other thing I was going to say about this top by experience earned. Study all your tanks. You're going to have a tank. It goes by penetrations. So you need ammunition that can penetrate more, and it goes by the gun and the type of round. So I'm going to show you an example with this E25. Over here you see you want to do the most penetrations to gain experience, and when you look at this gun, the 7.5 centimeter, there's a list where it says average penetration. It's under rate of fire. It's the second one. It says 150/194/38. The first number is regular rounds, penetration of 150. The second number is the premium rounds, penetration 194, more likely to penetrate, 30% more likely to penetrate. So that's why you want to use that to gain experience, because experience goes by penetrations, not by damage, not by the type of rounds you use. Penetrations and who you're hitting. Higher tier tanks that you hit, you get more experience. The last number is the HE rounds. The average penetration is 38. However, this is the figure that I don't understand. Even though that average penetration number is really low, it's more likely to penetrate than the 194 premium round. I can't explain it. I don't understand how they came up with this numbering system. So what you're going to do is you're going to go through all your tanks, and you're going to find which gun has the best penetration. Let's see if we can find an example. I'm going to pick any tank. It's got 6, 7 guns. I'm going to look at the center number of average penetration using premium rounds. It says 87. This one says 130. This one says 139. This one says 104. This one says 158. This one says 194. And this one says 221. So basically, if you were using this VK3001H, you would want to get that tier 7 gun that I've highlighted that has that average penetration of 221 compared to the original, which is 87. It's triple the penetration. That means you're going to get more experience. You're going to show up at the top of the list. Make sure you get the gun with the best penetration. Now for the high explosive rounds, that one's 38, 38, 53, 38, 25, 38. So this one has 53 for the penetration with the average, with the high explosive rounds, and it does a lot of damage. However, the rate of fire is 7.5. It's a little bit slower. This one is 12, which means it fires faster than the 7.5, and this is 15, which is even faster. So you want to get the most penetrations, you want to reload fast, and you want to have ammunition that penetrates and guns that penetrate. Then you gain experience. So you have to do that for maximum result to get the most experience earned. Now we're going to look at LT-15 Reconnaissance Pro. Assist your allies in causing at least 4,000 HP of damage by spotting enemy vehicles or destroying enemy vehicles' tracks. So you've got two options here. Number one, you spot enemy vehicles. And if you're, it doesn't say the first spotting, so I'm assuming you could spot them at any point in the game. Meaning that if it's at the end of the game and you're chasing after somebody and you happen to spot him, you want your allies to do the damage. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend the whole game being on the front lines, spotting enemy tanks. It's going to be easier to do in a tier 10 battle because the tanks have 3,000 hit points. You only have to destroy 2 tanks. You're going to spot tanks throughout the whole game. If you can't spot tanks, let's say your other teammates are spotting tanks too, because they might be closer to the action, you're going to destroy tracks. You're just going to sit there and hit the tracks over and over again. You hit the tracks, you spot the tanks, you hit the T button on your keyboard. When you hit the tracks of a vehicle, hit that T button so that your SPGs know that you've got a disabled vehicle, and it's easier for them to hit a disabled vehicle. You hit that T button because you want people to target the tanks that you're spotting. It's difficult to get 4,000 of hit points of spotting damage. I've done it before, but it's definitely easier in a tier 10 game. So you want a tier 7 light tank or tier 8 light tank. I don't think there's any tier 9 or tier 10 light tanks. You probably want a French tank or maybe the American Bulldog. Let me check. We're going to go back to here. Light tanks, tier 8. We've got this one, which looks like it's a new tank in the game. We've got this T49, which is a tier 8. It's probably the highest tier light tank. You got the Bulldog, the T71. You've got, I'm looking for the tanks that have the little diamond next to them. I think we looked at the German. French tanks, you've got AMX 1375, AMX 1390. Those will get you into the tier 10 games. Russian tanks, looking for little diamond, light tier tanks. The Russians don't have it until tier 7. You've got this LTTB, which could do the job, or this MT25. let's see, Chinese, you've got this WZ-132, WZ-131, maybe the Type 64, Japanese tanks. You have the Keiho. So I'm thinking, obviously your best light tier tank might be this T-49 American light tier tank up here. This is what I have. I have this French AMX 1375, and the 1390 is going to be coming up soon. In one day, I'm sure I can earn that tank. Okay, so that's how you're going to complete this campaign with light tanks. You're going to do spotting damage for 4,000 hit points on a high tier game. And if you've got a tier 4 tank, you're not going to get that high tier game, so it's going to be difficult to get 4,000 hit points of damage. So get the highest tier game you can. The reward you get for, I have no idea what that is. Maybe it's a garage slot, I can't tell. Bunks in the Barracks 1, crew member. I don't know what that is, but it's got to be a garage slot. I have no idea. Okay, so after you do that, after you've completed the light tanks, you're going to move on to medium tanks, and then you're going to do heavy tanks, and then you're going to do tank destroyers and SPGs, and you can do them in any order. I happen to start with light tanks. I've gotten the furthest until I got to the platoons. When I got to the platoons, I had to stop until I can arrange to meet with someone to platoon with. Now, I'm going to select this option here where it says started. And you'll notice that for light tanks I have a mission started, for medium tanks I have a mission started, for heavy tanks, mission started, tank destroyers I have a mission started, and for the howitzer I've got the mission started. And let's look at what this means and why you should do the same. This is join the battle as a platoon. I'm not going to do that, so actually I could cancel it, and I could start one of the redo missions. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cancel it because I'm not platooning right now. Over here, set an enemy vehicle on fire with a medium tank, destroy 2 enemy heavy tanks with a heavy tank, destroy 1 internal module with a tank destroyer, cause 1,000 hit points of damage with an SPG. I'm assuming that you've got a variety of tanks. You play between different tanks. You can win some of these campaigns without realizing it. If you want to go and start everything you can, that's the next on the list. So you might be playing a medium tank a month from now and set an enemy tank on fire, and if you've got that mission started, it will complete it for you without you having to actively think about it. It will happen if you go and start these missions, which is why I did that. So go and start every mission that you can. The other thing that you can do is you'll see over here it says completed but not with honors, improve result. Win the battle, be among the first 10, survive the battle. I can click improve result and it will start it. And perhaps, let's say I go to SPG. I'm not going to play SPG. I'm going to cancel it. Let's see if this works. And I'm going to do completed. Let's see what Renaissance is. Spot 2 enemy vehicles, survive the battle. I cannot improve result, but let's see about medium tanks. Cause damage during the first 5 minutes, survive the battle. Okay. Can only complete 1 mission. Therefore, you can only improve results for 1 mission at a time. So what I recommend you do is start as many missions as you can for tanks you're actually going to play. And for the ones that you can't play, let's say you don't play SPGs, find a mission that you completed and restart it with the improved result option, so that if you happen to play and win a battle and survive the battle, you will win 25,000 silver. So it's an extra way to win some extra money and do a better job completing the operation. When you finish everything, you're going to claim your reward, which should be the tank. I don't know because I haven't completed it yet. But that is how you do it. That is my strategy for light tanks, and how I have accomplished every mission, and how I plan to accomplish future missions. And I wish you the best of luck, and the other videos for medium, heavy, SPG, and tank destroyers will be other videos, separate videos. Thank you.